Welcome to part 2 of the Moose presentation about DCS tasks. In this video we'll see task precedence and see the anatomy of two example scripts written in Moose that issue tasks. So the task queue precedence explains how the en route, the tasks, the performed tasks, the commands and options work together. So in this example, and this is taken directly from the Eagle Dynamics PDF from 2020, we can see that task 1 is initiated. And task 1 is an attack group. But underneath this, pinning the entire behavior is an en route task. The second step is that the command and the options are executed, and they happen immediately. So the command to switch frequency and the option to flare using are instantly active on the AI. Then we see the task 2. Task 2 is an attack unit. Task 2 comes just in front of another en route task, which is overwritten and it's pending, and that is also over task 1, which is also pending now. Because task 2 is a performed task, it happens immediately and it overwrites the pending en route task. The second en route task is waiting until it can be initiated. So the en route task 1 is now prioritized because it was started before the en route task 2. The en route task 2 then starts and it becomes the priority. En route 1 still remains after all the other tasks have been completed, and it remains to be the last executed task throughout the route plan. So we're going to go through a Moose example, and this example is what we had to do before OffTrack was written by Frank. We're going to start off with some very basic Moose. We're creating two zones, and we're going to use these zones as points, and I'll show you how we use them. But the most important part of this is that we're going to spawn a new plane from the template that exists in the mission editor, seed plane. When that spawns, we're going to execute some code, and as soon as it's done, the spawn is created by the spawner airbase command, and it will be spawning at the airbase Kutaisi. So apart from spawning this plane at Kutaisi, what's going to happen exactly when it enters the world? Well, we're going to show you. This function is going to create two coordinates from both the zones that we made. So the first line's to coordinate is to zone, and home equals from zone. That gives us two coordinates, and we're going to use those to build that mission task that we talked about. The mission task here is a table WP for waypoint, and we're going to make an air turning point from home and an air turning point from the two coordinates, and that gives us the from and to for the mission route. The third part of this, we're going to create that waypoint as a task route, and that makes sure it is a mission. Then we're going to give it the en route task, engage targets in zone. So that en route task is created, and what it does is it gives the filter of tanks, and this is actually equivalent to the CAS task in the mission editor. So seed task here, ignore the fact it's called seed, will be an en route task engage targets in zone. and it will provide the the coordinate of 2 zone, and it will be attacking tanks. In the next line, we're going to create a task combo. This is just a word that's also used in the mission file, you'll see it, but the task combo combines the route and the CAS task that we've just created, the en route task engage zone. And we create that as a task combo, and then we set that task to the AI, and it will be delayed for 60 seconds while the aircraft takes off. And the final act here is to set an option. This is just for an example, option ROE weapons free. And this was the existing way that we created tasks. We had to create the mission task, we had to create the actual underlying task for it to do, so it would fall back to attacking tanks. And those two things are the two vital ingredients that you need to create that task combo and then set it to the AI controller. So, just to recap, we create the waypoint. We set an en route task, engage targets in zone. We create a combo task of a route and a CAS en route. And we set the task after 60 seconds. We provide the option set weapons free, and then we spawn the object. So we've done this dynamically, we've done this as a spawn, and this was the way that we used to do it before OffTrack. Now I'm going to give you an example of how to use OffTrack and how the same thing would be done in the same way, and we would be creating a spawn from the template called Blue CAS. We'd be then spawning it at Kutaisi, at the airbase. And this is what OffTrack will do to simplify that procedure of making mission tasks and en route tasks. Okay, so we have 6 lines on the Onspawn group, and what we're going to be doing is this. We're going to define a zone. You can use any coordinate that you have, but using the zone as the destination in this CAS example. So we define the zone radius new. It's actually situated on Kutaisi's vector 2 point. We then create an OffTrack order. OffTrack is another word for task or mission, but we've run out of those words, so we've given it a new pretty name. And this OffTrack is a new CAS, where the parameters for that are accepting a zone, which we've just defined, and some speed and altitudes as such. So there's an interesting line here now where we make that group a flight group. Okay, so blue CAS equals flight group new group, and the group is the group that spawns. Our blue CAS that spawns is wrapped in that flight group. I'm going to talk about flight group more in depth later. We then simply add that mission to the flight group, and the group then spawns at Kutaisi. It has its task, it has its direction, its waypoints, its mission task, and its en route task. We could also add options earlier on to this. So that completes the initial description of how tasks work in DCS and what the problem is that we're solving. What we saw is how an OffTrack new CAS can be very simple to write with comparisons to the SSE engine, which is quite difficult. Where you can get more information about tasking, which is quite an advanced topic, from using the Moose Discord, specifically in the controllable channel. You can also get information on AI tasking from the Hoggit wiki. I'll put this in the description. And the DCS website has an FAQ on tasking. It's about a page long. Finally, there are hundreds of pages in the DCS user manual, which is a very underread document, and it's very from pages 211 onwards we'll go through how to use the mission editor, which is the user interface, to create tasks. Once you understand how to do that, you'll understand what you are doing by doing it in scripting. Thank you very much. This concludes the short explanation on what DCS tasks are, both in the mission editor and at a scripting level. Tasking is complex in DCS. The scripting structure is not easy to explain, but the example should paint a picture well enough to give our next video on OffTrack a basic backdrop. See you there.